All right. Well, first of all, good morning or good afternoon to anybody who has joined us today. What we're going to be covering, and we appreciate your business, is upcoming business changes. We're going to also discuss a reminder of our offerings. Going to talk a little bit about some supply chain news, and then I'm going to turn it over to Julie Call, and she's actually going to jump into the live DC Warehouse software and show you the versions of .051 and .052. As a matter of introduction, I am Kirsten Austin, happen to be the president of DCSC. I want to start off by, first of all, thanking each and every one of you for your business. We appreciate each and every single customer that we have, and without you, we can't put warm food in our bellies, drive cars, and live and breathe in this world, and we exist to be here to support you and your business efforts. So thank you so much for your business. We definitely appreciate it. Do want to remind everyone that we are recording this meeting. So please, we're muting everybody, and we'll kind of explain at the end how the Q&A will work. But do know that you're being recorded. So if there's any confidential business matter that you would like to discuss, we can obviously take that in a one-off. But I thank you all for joining us, and we shall proceed. So the first thing I want to talk about is the purpose of the customer updates. It's really important for us to communicate with you new features, new shipping changes, and just make sure that you're informed. We are constantly enhancing the DC Warehouse automation suite. We're adding, crucial supply chain manufacturing and distribution functionality. Our goal is and always will be to allow our customers to compete in their industries by saving time, ensuring that their inventory is accurate, and leveraging modern technology. Every single time that we put a new feature in our product, it's going to come in one of two ways. So number one, we do have customer requests that are paid. So that, typically we'll write a technical scope, and then we'll agree with the customer, hey, this sounds like something that will benefit our whole end user community. And that is why now DC Warehouse is such a rich and mature product. So the win for the customer is they don't have to pay for one-off development. We incorporate it into the DC Warehouse product, and that's why we're showing the new releases, the new features, just to make sure that all of our customers are aware of new features that might help them in their business operations as well. We also look at our customer requests that are unpaid but nice to have. Julie is probably your best advocate for that, but she keeps a list of requests, and if there's a popular amount of requests for a specific feature and we've already opened up the code for a new release and it makes sense, we will roll that into the product. So that's another way that we definitely put new features into the product. We are going to be sending out a survey to all our customers before the end of the year, asking if there's any features that you are requesting to put into our release early next year. So if you don't mind, take a look at that email, respond to us, and we're definitely paying attention to that. The other thing that comes into our product is those fun new shipping carrier requirements and services. So that's another thing that we want to make sure that all of our customers are aware of. It's an ever-changing landscape out there, especially with UPS, FedEx, all of those guys. So we'll kind of talk about that a little more. The first thing I want to go over, because there seems to be some confusion out there as to all of our offerings. So I'm just going to kind of go through this really quickly. But obviously, DC Warehouse Automation is something that you all have licensed. So we have a small or enterprise edition, and really that's just a user base. It's not a feature base. And then we have the DC Package Manager. So that's all parcel related, and it's a multi-carrier rate shopping solution, and it also streamlines your entire pick, pack, ship process. That is built into our software, so you don't have to go to a separate UPS or a separate FedEx or a separate DHL or separate USPS. All of that is incorporated into one streamlined solution. Everything flows from order entry through pick, pack, ship, labels, returning that information back, etc. That package manager also has touch points into 4 different EDI solutions. So 90% of our customers are using that package manager. With that package manager, we have truckload manager. Now that is not shopping for rates or anything else, but that is just allowing you to organize truckloads, stage those, get those out the door. The next options that we have is the FedEx freight option. As everyone is aware, FedEx is aggressively chasing the freight market right now, so we do have an optional integration to them. We also have an optional Purolator option, and then we have our DC Package Manager Banyan LTL option. And what Banyan is, it is a cloud-based TMS service that allows for just unlimited LTLs. They have instantaneous carrier connections, and we integrate with Banyan. So this is allowing you to do your freight rate shopping, to book loads, to print out the appropriate shipping, paperwork, etc., without having to leave the DC Warehouse solution. We also have the DC Warehouse Avalara integration. So for those of you who have to collect sales tax and are utilizing Avalara's program, we do have an optional integration that connects that through our order entry screen and through our pick, pack, ship, settling at the time of shipment. We also have a 3PL module. That is for our customers that might be leveraging a 3PL warehouse, and it's too expensive to put Sage 500 in DC Warehouse out there, but you do want to track shipping information. You do want to keep all of that organized. So we've created something that allows you to manage that in a very cost-effective manner. And then we have our credit card integration. So for those customers who do take credit card payments, we have a credit card optional integration, and we're working with PayPal to do that. So a lot of good stuff out there. I do want to talk about the importance of training, not to mention the big elephant in the room, that whole COVID situation. We did relax our rules on training because obviously no one was going to fly out anywhere during that time. But we're seeing it more and more just based on the climate we're in right now, everything that's been going on. A lot of our customers have bought other companies. They've had new employees join their team, etc. So I want to, I hate beating a dead horse here, but I want to talk about the importance of training and, what we offer here. So obviously, when you first implement DC Warehouse, that's your initial implementation and deployment. So typically the goal would be to get some things under your belt, get those features live, get those operational in your environment. But afterwards, when we've had customers that come here, well, not during the COVID situation, but they actually send people here every year because they want to do additional process improvements. So they might have implemented something simple like receiving and picking and packing and shipping, but now they want to implement manufacturing, or now they want to implement more advanced things such as bin replenishment, et cetera. So they'll send a team over here, and this is included in your annual renewal. And I think that is very generous. I will tell you it's not a moneymaker for us, but it's a very good thing to enhance our customer service and delivering a quality product that your team actually understands to deploy additional functionality within your environment. So the reason that we even offer this in your renewals for 2 days in St. Louis, you can have up to 4 students, is it gets your team out of your environment so you can kind of clear your mind. We can focus in on your company. We don't group companies together. We do allow you to send a list of anything that you want to cover. So if it's something in the newer features or if it's something that you want to implement within your operations, give us a list. We start preparing for that. But when you come out to St. Louis, we work with you one-on-one. You're going to get experience with a handheld. You're going to be able to ask any types of questions without directly to us. So it's a very personal, customizable approach here. The other thing is if you have new team members that have not been trained on DCWarehouse, you have to understand this is a crucial application. I mean, it is touching everything from receiving, picking, packing, shipping, cycle counting, you name it. We're touching your entire business here. So it's just silly in doing you all a disservice to not get newer employees trained. And I do have to remind you that we do bill for our remote support. So there's a difference between support and training. So we understand that it's hard to let people go for a couple of days, but I can guarantee you that we have customers that do it all the time. They send people here. They start deploying new functionality, and they really take advantage of what DCWarehouse has to offer. So if you are interested in training, give us a call. We'd love to set that up with your team. I want to kind of talk about, and we will be sending this presentation to everyone that attended this meeting today. So again, thank you for your time. But I want to kind of talk about some podcasts that I was involved in. And I think that these are worth your time to listen to. So, these are pretty easy to just play when you have time. But my most recent one was Supply Chain Leadership in Today's Time. And I really did cover things that are being implemented even in some of our customers' environments. We talked about AI. A lot of customers are starting to look at that, whether it's incorporated into their marketing, whether it's incorporated into their system security, their own support of their products, et cetera. I mean, that's a real thing, and it's becoming more popular. We kind of talked about pivoting when there's times that, the whole world is topsy-turvy, how to pivot back and forth. We talked about really people. Everyone is still having, hiring issues. So I talked about different strategies for that, and there definitely are strategies because manufacturing and distribution is where it's at, and it's the way that you sell it. So this is a really good time to get creative, start looking at people you never would have thought of, looking at an internship program. Hey, you're not just a warehouse worker, you're learning supply chain from the bottom up. Obviously paid internship, make a little program where they're actually learning about manufacturing, et cetera. So I also talked about the basics of supply chain and technology. That's a great podcast for anybody that's newer to that, and that would be great even to have an intern listen to. I talked about simple advice for manufacturers, and there is a plethora of information of real-life experience, just simple things that you might overlook, especially things like keeping your data clean, keeping your security down, just certain process recommendations. And then I had a podcast for best practices in your warehouse. Same thing, touched upon a lot of distribution type of advice. Also want to talk about the USA Manufacturing Hour. It's an X-Chat. I've been a co-leader of it for, I think we're going on our 5th year, but it's super cool. We have all of our recaps out there, but we are really actually talking about real live marketing. We're talking about inventory control. We're talking about AI. We're talking about MEP programs for manufacturers. We're talking about finance, all of that. So all of those recaps are there, and there's just a great amount of information. And if you are a USA manufacturer and you want to promote yourself on social media, I can definitely get you on there and show you how to do it. It's pretty easy. So I wanted to kind of talk about that. Wanted to talk about our future product goals. So in the next 6 to 8 months, we're working on any required updates for UPS and FedEx, and I'm sure that you all are aware of UPS and FedEx are changing their technology. UPS in the area of OAuth, and I swear if I hear OAuth one more time, I'm just going to roll over. OAuth. So UPS, not going to lie, had target dates, then went back on that, then went forward on it. But we're going to make sure that we're complying with them, and so that all of those are implemented. And then FedEx is making some security changes and also changing some of their technology over to JSON, which I thought was JSON, but it's JSON. We're also updating the Banyan LTL TMS integration to 3.0. We're currently on 1.0, but there's enough enhancements, and that solution is really getting better. Over the last few years, they've been under new leadership, and I'm really liking some of the changes they've done. And I can be the first one to tell you, if you ship out LTL and you are not shopping your freight, you are missing out. There is no doubt that this Banyan integration will save you money. There, in some cases, can be a 24% difference in rates, depending on your origin and your destination. So we highly recommend, if you have not implemented Banyan and this is something that you want to start lowering your freight costs, give us a call. We'll start looking at this with you. In January of 2025, because we need to get out all that UPS and FedEx, we need to get that just out the way. But we are aware that there are newer Sage 500 releases. Typically, when they have a brand new release, we wait a little while anyway. But in January, we're shooting for the end of January, and we will keep everyone posted. We will go ahead and update DCWarehouse to support whatever the latest release and build that they have. I do want to give you a forewarning right now, because currently we're supporting multiple versions of DCWarehouse, but in May of 2025, we're going to drop support for 7.9. So you might want to put that as a goal next year to do an upgrade. When we say drop support, it doesn't mean that it's going to go away and you can't use that software. But when we say we will drop support, there will be no fixes done in that version and no even custom modifications. I do want to say thank you to everyone over the whole COVID situation in the past few years. We were supporting several versions. There's a lot to do that as a software developer, but we did do it because we weren't going to force people to upgrade during that time. But we hope you understand we can't support 5, 6 different versions, continue adding, new functionality, supporting new carrier requirements and services, et cetera. So again, just kind of put that that thought in your mind that in May of 2025, that would be a good time to start planning beforehand for an upgrade. We're also going to be adding new distribution and manufacturing features. So Julie and her team are doing an analysis of the most popular requests. And then again, as mentioned, I will be sending out a MailChimp, and you'll see some questions asked, but we are going to ask you if there's something that would really make your life just that much better, something in DC Warehouse that you think would make it easier for your users to use, etc. But we're going to start doing an analysis of that and incorporating even additional features into the product. So that is our goals there. I'm not going to read all of this off, but you can see that this latest release was a pretty healthy one. So I'm going to let Julie show those features and kind of show you how those work and flow throughout the DC Warehouse situation. And again, you'll be getting a copy of this overview, so you'll have this to refer to. I do want to let you all know that we send out product release notes. We are very, very detailed in anything that we've added to the solution. Not that we're proud of it, but, obviously sometimes there's a fix. So we don't hide any of that. It's very transparent. But we recommend that you take a look at that. It's laid out as a table of contents, so you can quickly go boop, boop, boop. That's what they've added to the product. But the reason that we ask you to look at this is it continues to happen, and it's not that we do not love our Sage 500 resellers that we work with. We need them to support you on your Sage 500 product or your base product. But time and time again, our customers have paid for development of something that we are already going to be putting into DC Warehouse or already is in the product. So if for any reason you are not getting those product release notes, please give us a shout. Just shoot an email to support. We'll add your name to the list and make sure that you're getting those, because there's a lot of work not only in us adding these new features to the product, but Julie and her team do a beautiful job of putting those release notes together. So please let us know if you're not getting those release notes, and we'll make sure to put you on the list. So we are recording this demonstration, and I've got everyone on mute just so there's no background noises, etc. At the very end, we are going to open up to Q&A, and we tested this 3 times yesterday. Susan, my assistant, and I tested this, but if you raise your hand and you look down at the little bottom of the WebEx, you'll see a little hand. If you wave your hand, I will be able to see that, and I can unmute you. I will go ahead and send an unmute to you, but you have to unmute yourself. So there's a little button that just says unmute me. So wanted to just kind of show you how that worked for the end for Q&A. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Julie Call. Before I do that, I want to thank you, Julie, for being such a valued team member. You've been with us since 1995. Can't do this without you. That's a picture of us at the Customer Summit in Colorado a few years back. But I definitely appreciate all you do, and I know you take your time to get ready for these presentations. So thank you so much, Julie. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you. And as Kirsten mentioned earlier, I do want to thank all of you definitely for taking the time out of your day to view today's presentation. We've got some exciting new features in versions 51 and 52. I won't be able to go through every single one of them. I will go through the majority and the main ones that I see in there. I'll also mention what some of the fixes are in there as well. And keep in mind that for 51 and 52, these are supported with the 7.9, the 8.0, and the 8.2 versions. So you'll have the same features across all three of those. There's no differences to what may be an A2 versus 8.0. It's all the same features if you look at the release notes. So I'm going to kind of go through these in an ordered manner. We'll talk about what some of the main changes were on the sales order pick, pack, ship side, some of the changes that may have been on the inventory side. I don't think these two versions had anything on the PO, and then as well as manufacturing. So I'm going to kind of go through them in order. We're going to start off with the sales order pick, pack, ship. And as many of you know, I know that some of you have already gotten this in place. I know there's a few on this call that do not have this in place. The first biggest thing is the UPS authorization changes, the API stepping stone. Most of you are good with that. For those of you that are not on one of our supported versions, if you need to use UPS, you've probably found out by now that it is no longer working. UPS made some changes to their direct integration, requiring the new OAuth authorization changes. They have changed that whole side of things behind the scenes. So in addition to all the other API callbacks that we have to this new token structure, all of those have been updated in the system. And from a user perspective, the only new setups that will look different will involve the registration. You won't notice anything different as far as how it's working besides the registration, but there are things behind the scenes and the coding that are definitely taking place. So that's a big jump that we had to make for UPS. As Kirsten mentioned, we will be focusing on finishing up the rest of the UPS, but that is not due right at this time. The main one that was due at this time was the OAuth, and then we'll also be working on FedEx to meet their deadlines before the end of the year. So just for those of you that may not have seen this, I know most of you have, but for those that have not seen it, there is a new UPS authorization. So when I go into this screen, you will just keep in mind that you will no longer use from which you've been used to before, UPS License and Registration Wizard. That will actually be going away. One of the other things that we'll be working on over the next few releases is cleanup, getting rid of old things, getting rid of features that really are no longer used within the system. So this will be going away. You only use the UPS authorization moving forward. And it's pretty straightforward. Basically, it's just a matter of going in, putting in your specific UPS username, whether or not it's a test or production account, what's your warehouse default. You've got all of your warehouses here, and then you can put any necessary UPS accounts next to them to confirm that, yes, is that the UPS account or not. Once that's done, it's basically next step. You get the token from ups.com, and it goes ahead and it will log you in to the UPS site through here. And then you go ahead and put in your UPS username. I'll just go ahead and click that, continue, and then the password. So I'm just going to put that in real quick. Log in, and it generates a token. So basically, behind the scenes, that new token has been updated, and then you'll go ahead and process like normal. You can do your shop for rates, you can do your shipping, and that token refreshes itself every so often. So basically, from a user standpoint, the users would not notice anything different, but you'll still do your other same processes through the package manager or if you're doing your shop for rates. So when I come in here, and let's say that I bring up, a specific sales order, and look at this, we see that this one is a UPS ground. I can go ahead and ship, and it is going out, talking with UPS, returning the information, and giving me my label. So again, for those of you that may not have moved up to this new OAuth, it is important that you do get this in place. We definitely support it on the 7.9, 8.0, and 8.2 versions. So if it needs to take an upgrade to get you there, definitely talk with my support team, and we'll work out a plan for you on that. So we've talked about the UPS. One other little small thing that I do want to point out, this has been brought up to me as a question from quite a few customers over the years. It also was something that was driving me just crazy on the sales order entry screen. But as for those of you that shop for rates, in SO entry, you know that when you shop for rates, you're going to your line defaults, you're going to the ship method, you're right-clicking, and you can shop for rates from there. One thing that we used to have on here was when you would go to that line defaults and shop for rates, it would say other things like UPS service, FedEx services, DHL services, and so on. Those weren't really valid anymore. That was the old processing of using it. You'll notice now in these new versions that when you go to shop for rates, it's truly only shop for rates. There is no need to do UPS service, FedEx services, and it just had all this list of things that really was no longer valid. That has been cleaned up. So I just wanted to point that out that, as I mentioned, one of the things as we're moving through these new versions and going in and doing UPS changes, FedEx changes, Banyan changes, we're also not only going to be adding new features, as Kirsten mentioned, for distribution and manufacturing, but we're going to be focusing a lot on cleanup, getting rid of anything old, getting rid of anything that's outdated or no longer used. So definitely a lot of cleanup will be taking place throughout each and every screen over this next part of the year and early next year. The next feature in the Pick, Pack, Ship side of things is what we call our shipment sorter. And for those of you that were not on the last update, just to kind of give you an idea of what our new shipment sorter feature is most of you I know have a three-step process. Three-step process meaning that you go ahead, actually, should I say a two-step process. You pick it, and then you pack and ship it as a second step. When putting in the shipments order, that added a third step. So let's say, for example, I may wave picket to a cart. That cart then goes up to tables where they're sorting the product, and they put it into, let's say, totes with a shipment that will hold each of the inventory for that specific shipment. So the cart may turn into, let's say, 10 different totes for 10 different shipments, and then those 10 totes go up to my packing stations, and the users will then take those things out of the tote, package them, and ship them out the door. So we did not really have an option to go ahead and do that step, that shipment sorter. We always went usually from picking, and then it went to package manager, whether you picked it to box at the time of picking or you did it in package manager. It didn't have that middle step. Well, we went ahead and added that on the last customer update and showed the new feature. There have been updates to that since then. So just to kind of talk about some of the updates to the shipment sorter, there was three main parts, actually four main parts, should I say. In this shipment sorter, the main things that we did were, one, now we have the ability to handle when non-inventory items are also on the pick list. So before it wasn't ignoring the non-inventory items, and the users would go through and pick all their items, but it wouldn't think it was done because those non-inventory items truly do never get picked. There's nothing to do with them. So we have made the ability to ensure that it is incorporating non-inventory items in here. We've updated the scanning tab features have been updated on this screen to ensure the tabbing structure remains the same regardless if you're entering it manually or you're actually scanning each of the fields on the screen. We've also updated error messages, so to make it really informative to the user, letting them know exactly what mistake they're making, if they scan something wrong, if they're done with the actual pick list that they're working on. Every message that pops up will inform the user of exactly what's going on. So talking about these first three pieces of it, I'm going to go ahead and just bring up a pick list in here. So I'm going to go to my DC Warehouse inquiry, look at my pick list status, and if I come in here, I'm going to go ahead and look at pick list contains 172045. Okay, coming in here, I can look at my details. And these are two different shipments on here. I see that the items on here include an item called training. That is my non-inventory item. So I've got items cable 100, cable 300, etc. Those are inventory items. Training is a non-inventory item. So when I look at this screen and go over to my shipment sorter, basically I'm going to go ahead and put in my number, 72. Let's say that I had scanned this in. I can go ahead, let me bring that one up, 172045. At this point, basically the user just goes through. Even though on the other screen we saw that there was training, we noticed that it didn't incorporate it in here because it automatically knows, hey, there was nothing to pick. It's not going to go ahead and try and force them to sort it here. So just to let you know, they go through, they scan their item, they scan where it's being placed, what bin it's being placed in. So one of the things, if you didn't see the last one, we actually, instead of the user having to know each and every shipment number that's in those bins that they're sorting it into, we make it as simple as possible. Each shipment number gets a letter. Shipment number, the first one would be A, B, C, and D. So the user, all they have to do is scan an item, take it out of the cart, and then it tells them which bin to go drop it in. So in this case, I go scan bin A, and it goes to the next item. So at that point, they just keep going through. Scan that one also went in A. Choose another one of that same item. It goes into B. Scan another item. That one goes into B. And then that one goes into B. So it was able to go ahead and tell me that all of the items in the pick list had been sorted, and it was able to recognize that, hey, those non-inventory items were there, but it didn't need to do anything with them before it was stopping or not stopping the user and saying, okay, you still have more to do, even though they didn't. So that's the first one. Again, one of the other things that was going through there is if whether they're scanning or they're doing it manually, the tabbing structure remains the same. So that way there would be no difference in how the screen reacts based upon whether or not you are doing that manual or scanning. And those error messages definitely allows the user to go ahead and see exactly what's going on. As another example of that, let's say that I pick up a pick list. On here, let's say that the user just tried to enter. We see what our items are over here. But let's say that the user decided to just scan something that wasn't even there, or a different item. It will actually tell them this item is not on the pick list. So it definitely, all of those error messages have been improved within the system. The last thing that I do want to go ahead and point out, actually one more thing on there. I'll just bring that back up. One more thing is that whole new queue. Before, when we did the initial release of the actual shipment sorter, over on the right-hand side, you notice there is a new queue option. That queue was not originally there. This was brought up because they wanted to be able to see, you know, as they're scanning things out of the cart and putting it into the individual totes, they wanted to have an idea of, okay, what is left, you know, what have they scanned so far, what have they not scanned so far, and they'd be able to come in and actually just, as they're scanning things, we can see that right now we've got, see all of the items, the total that we have. But if I come in here and say, okay, cable 100, we'll put that in A. Notice as you do that, it drops it to the bottom of the list. It marked that one as 0, and my total went down. So each one that I do, let's say that I went and I did now a cable 200. Put that in B. Again, it just keeps dropping it to the bottom of the queue, and my number keeps going down. So the user has a good idea of what is still left to do for this specific pick list as they're sorting it. So those were the 4 changes made to the shipment sorter within 51 and 52. Some other features on the pick, pack, ship side. Next one is just a form change, but I do want to point it out. new ASN label. A new format was added for advanced auto parts. If you wanted to see all of the exact details of the changes made to the label, there was various heading changes, blanking out certain boxes, moving data around, font changes. All of those exact details would be in the release notes. But if you were interested in that form, you can simply bring that up by going to WL Setup Forms. You would have to give your form a name. And once you give it a name, I just called mine Advanced ASN, you would browse for this new report name. The new report name, once it is brought up, then you can go ahead and assign that to your various customers. You would do that directly in Customer Options. So let's say, for example, I've got this assigned to my customer Abbott. So I can see that this ASN form is assigned there. Now, if I go into my Package Manager, I'm going to go ahead and just bring up a specific shipment. And when I look at this shipment, I can go ahead and right-click, say Print All ASN Labels, and we see our first two here. So it's just, again, another new format of a new ASN label. Go to the second page, and there's the third label. So multiple changes were made to create this label, and again, the listing of the exact details of the changes are in the release notes. Another change that was made on this end of things, RF picking, showing shipment list. This is related to, for those of you that may utilize what we call our signature automation feature. Let's say you have will call, where you go ahead and you prepare these shipments. They're sitting there until the customer comes, picks them up, and you have to do this process really quickly through the system. So one of the things that we always had in prior versions with the will calls was that it was usually one person was coming to pick up one shipment. Well, we had gotten over the past 6 months a customer who, when this customer comes to pick it up, they may have multiple shipments that need to go ahead and be processed and be ready at one specific time. So what we did then was when it actually goes through and you process your pick and it goes to make your shipment labels, it would go ahead and separate it into 3 labels, but it was kind of confusing to the user because it would only show them one shipment number, even though it made 3 shipments behind the scenes. Just the message has been changed. So for example, to show you what I'm talking about, I've got 3 sales orders here. And these 3 sales orders, so in my specific case, there are 3 different customers, but they could be the same customer going just 3 different shipments. So 12546, 12547, and 12548. So I've got these 3 orders here. Let's say that I'm going to go ahead and create a pick list for those 3 orders. So I'll go ahead and just add them in here quickly to my specific pick list. And add the last one. Go ahead and bring that forward. It's going to be pick list 172130. Okay, I'll go ahead and save that. At this point, I can go out to my handheld, go into, let's say, wave picking, and I'll go ahead and bring that one up. And I'll go ahead and pick this. Let's say that they're preparing these early. Okay, quantity 1. Okay, next item. Put that in. And I'll put this last item in. Quantity 1. It will recognize at the end, based upon setup, I'm going to say no right now for this. It does recognize that this is one of those will calls or signature automations. Let's say that the user comes back later. I'm not going to print the label at that point, but let's say they come back when the customer's there to pick it up. I go ahead and say, yes, go ahead and give me all of the ones on this given pick list, 172, 130. Say yes. Notice at this point, before it would just say one shipment, even though there's going to be 3 shipments. Now we put in exactly how many shipments there are and the range of shipments. So it's from this number to this number. There's a total of 3. And then my signature labels will print out. So just a simple little change there, but again, we're trying to make this as informative for the user, as easy for them to understand as possible so that there's no confusion on the process. So I've got my 3 will call labels, and those would go ahead and then get placed on the product, and it would automatically process that will call or signature automation process through Package Manager. Okay, one more change on the Pick, Pack, Ship side was the single-step ship label. I know most of you are just using, let's say, for example, if you normally have your UPS labels, you have your FedEx labels. Then there's also generic labels, which just our single-step, our single-ship label before really only had who it's shipping from, who it's shipping to. We've added an alternate version in there. So not only will it have who it's shipping from, who it's shipping to for this generic label, but it also will have things like what is the sales order number, what is the customer PO number, and then how many pallet packages do you have. So in here, if you were interested in using that specific form, again, just WL setup forms, you can go ahead and bring up the new form. So you would go ahead and give it an ID and then just pick up the specific one that you want to use. This one, I named it Single Ship SOPO, and the report name is right here. And basically what this would look like is when you go to your package manager, I'll go ahead and just bring up a sales order. And in here, I can simply right-click, say print all ship labels, and notice this is what we had before, the from, the to. We've added the PO, the order, and then the 1 of 3. So you can go ahead and see that, 2 of 3, and then when the last one comes out, that one will be my 3 of 3. So we have added just those small changes. So now you have multiple different types of labels that you can choose from for those generic ship labels or for the non-integrated carriers. Some other things that have been added, and these are more I would consider just across the board or inventory type changes on the handheld. In here, it was asked to be able to call stock movement from the escape menu. So let's say, hypothetically, I'm in doing picking. And when I'm in picking, let's say that I was going through and just working on my pick list, and I got somewhere, and I did not have enough inventory at this specific bin. There was an issue, and I needed to do a stock movement really quickly. Now, as long as you have security to get into stock movement, the user, without having to exit this screen, go over to the inventory menu, do a stock movement, you can go ahead and hit escape and get to stock movement right from here. So again, that was I'm in picking, hit escape, go to the second option, stock movement, do my stock movement, and then hit F4, and it takes me right back to the picking screen I'm in. So again, that can be accessed from anywhere in the system, as long as you just hit the escape button, and stock movement would be available quickly to you instead of having to go ahead and exit out, go to IM operations, and go here. So that is one of the features that is available, just that quick call from escape menu for stock movement. Another one that was requested to be added was, when you go into some of these deeper menus, whether it be manufacturing, whether it be, going into some of the IM operations, you may go 5 or 6 F4s back to get back to the main menu. Well, let's say, for example, I'm in manufacturing, transaction, labor menu, labor entry. That could be 4 or 5 F4s to get back to the main menu. Well, when the person's done, maybe they just want to say, okay, I just want to go straight from this screen back to the main menu and keep it at the main menu. So that also has been added as an option. So I can simply, from this screen, hit escape, and you see the last one on there is return to main menu, which took me right back to where we have warehouse manager and manufacturing. So if they're passing, if it's a shared scanner that they want to quickly go back, or they just want to keep it on the main menu when they're not working on something, that's a quick way to do it without having to hit F4 multiple times. So 2 things that were added to that escape menu. Next one is just, I do want to mention this. It was brought to my attention with one of the clients who had come out for training, that we all know that inventory adjustments in the system allow you to go positive or negative in the system. Follows Sage's process. Inventory issues should only allow you to go negative. You're taking away when you're issuing something out. Well, we had an issue in our system where it was allowing you to go positive too, and it should not have allowed the system to do that. So I do want to point out for you, those of you that maybe had seen that it was doing that, and like that has been changed to fix it. It should have never allowed to go positive. So in IM operations, inventory issue, I'm going to bring up an item. We see here, I'll actually go ahead and just choose box or each. And in here, let's say that I have a specific bin, and you would issue a quantity, just like that. It's going to deduct it. How they were doing this before is putting a negative number or negative in front of this number, and it was adding it to it. Well, that shouldn't have happened. So I do want to point out that in this screen, if you try to put a negative here, it will tell you, actually, if I try to put a negative number here, it will tell me that it needs to be greater than 0. So that little issue has been resolved there. Sage only wants that one to be a negative or going, subtracting from it, so we want to stick with those specific standards there. Another thing that we have done is, for those of you that use the move stock multi-lot, we have made no changes for lots or regular items. This is only for serialized items. For those of you using serialized items, it was a little difficult for the user to really understand what was in the bin. As an example, let's say that I go ahead and I pick up this specific item, and I say where I'm taking it from, where I'm going to move it to. Notice right now it shows me 95. So that means I have 95 serial numbers in this specific bin. Before, for serials, just based on the serial processing in the system is a one-to-one relationship, it was showing 1, 1, and 1 for quantity available, quantity, and available. So, but it was brought to our attention, hey, maybe we want to see how many serial numbers are within this specific bin that I'm moving. So we added the true available quantity, and we took out DCWarehouse quantity available because it is a serial. It's only going to be 1. So here basically what this happens is we made this a little bit easier to read. We went ahead, let's say I choose a specific serial to move, and it automatically recognized we moved 1. It moved down to 94. So this gives them the ability to move serial numbers really quick, scan, 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 and it will keep moving this available number down. So again, just a simple little change, but for those of you who utilize serial numbers, that can make a huge difference. A couple other options more on the manufacturing side. We've made some changes. For those of you that may use what we call picking cart and validating intermediate bins with manufacturing and picking. Basically, this functionality has been in there for a little bit, but basically if you are using the manufacturing, you're linking it with sales orders. You are then going ahead and you want to keep the inventory from a sales order and the manufactured product together onto a cart. We had what we called interim bins. And with those interim bins, it was actually telling, for example, let's say I had an order that had both a pickable item and a manufactured item. The pickable item, I would go ahead and pick it and assign a cart number to it. Manufacturing would tell me, go ahead, when you've done with that, place your product into that same cart. So it was linking the two together to keep the inventory together for that specific order. But in prior versions, what would happen is we would not validate because it was mentioned that, we wanted to keep that open so they could create carts on the fly. Well, truly when people are using carts, they usually have those carts numbered. And it ended up with some users creating just too many carts or typing in a cart number wrong, so you could end up with just a whole load of these invalidated cart numbers. That has been changed to now validate all of the interim bins. So what I mean by that is in here, in my Setup RF options, if you are using that feature, since it is linking with picking and manufacturing, and right now it is only done for fast picking, there is something where it says allow cart, link to intermediate bin if you are linking it with manufacturing and picking. But there's also now an option called validate intermediate bin. And basically what this is going to do is if this is enabled, it will then look at and only allow the user to use bins that are in the setup special bins. So in my setup special bins, I may have all of these different carts set up, and they actually have the intermediate bin marked on those. So those are the only ones that can be used now. So if the user tries to type in something that's a different cart or whatever it may be, it's going to give them an error saying this is not a valid cart. So before it was just allowing them to enter anything into that field. Now it will be validated. So just as an example, let's say to show you that it will validate it, let's say I make a sales order. I'm going to put 12627, pick up my customer. I'm going to put in two different items, a pickable item, if I could type it today, and then a manufactured item. And I'll go ahead and just save this. Let's say for the second item, I go ahead and I'm going to link these together. I'm going to create the work order right from here. You don't have to, as long as you do make a link when you make the actual work order. 2142. I'm going to use a different routing. Cable 300A. Bring it to screen. And I will put this as today's date. Save this. Now, I've got my work order. I'll go ahead and say it's printed. Save this order. Let's say I go to pick the actual pickable item on this order. So I'm going to create a pick list for that item 1. I can't do it for number 2 yet because I have not made that product yet. But in here, let's say that I go ahead and I pick up that sales order, 2627. I'll say contains R is equal to 1. And I'll bring that up. 172131. And on here, I'll go ahead and save that. Just to show you what I'm talking about, if I go out, when they go to pick this, in my directed picking, again, it's only in fast picking, in the manufacturing, but when they get to this field, let's say that the user typed it in wrong. Let's say that they say like cart -77777. That's not a valid cart. So before it would just allow it. Now it's going to say not a valid cart. So it is actually going to confirm from that list that we had just seen before. So it's not going to allow just anything to be put into that field anymore. It will make sure that it's validated. It will make sure that it is not used for another order. So there will be multiple validations done. So it's going to be done not only at the picking time, but also when it goes over to manufacturing as well, depending upon which process you do first. So that's one of the changes made on the actual manufacturing side. One of the other changes is also for work orders. If you're using the move materials, if you're using the actual move materials by, I'll bring this screen up, by intermediate bin here, from this one, we actually have the ability now, before you could go through, you could just pick up from the list the UPC, you could pick up from the list the bin. We wanted to validate that and force the user to actually scan those. So in here, if I come to my RF options, the things that I want to point out in the RF options is that there's some new options here on this specific move material screen. So you can see require bin scan if you want to force the user to actually scan the bin, or if you want to force them to scan the UPC as they're doing the move materials for the work order. So coming over to that screen, you could see when I go in here and pick up a specific work order, so let's say that I pick up 2088, I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to put it in to which intermediate bin. I'll just pick up a specific, any one of these parts at this point. And where am I going to take it from? So this is the one that it's going to validate here. So where are you pulling the inventory from? So if I try to hit enter, just notice that it's going to say, please scan from all bins. So I had it forcing me to scan the bin that I'm taking it from. So at that point, let's say that I scanned in 01-03. Okay, and then it gets to UPC. That was the other feature that we said, require them to scan it. So again, before they could have simply hit enter and it would brought up the UPC. Now it's going to say, please scan the UPC number. So again, more validation was added into some of these processes. One of the other things that I do want to point out, so those are the main features from 51 and 52. I know a few of you were not on the last update, and one of the biggest things that was on the last customer update, for those of you that may not have seen it, just all of the screens that we updated with the autofill leading zeros. That was a huge change across the board for picking, inventory, PO, manufacturing. I don't know if you've noticed as I've been doing this, on all of these screens that you have, you can simply come in to any of them now. Let's say purchasing, and let's say I was in POTO receiving, and let's say I was at the transfer order mode. You can simply go in there and just pick up any of the specific numbers without having to enter zeros anymore. So 107, it automatically recognizes it. And that is on every single screen on the RF now. So just wanted to point that out because that was a huge thing for me, you know, having to hate entering all those zeros, especially on the manufacturing side. Just know that that has been resolved on every single screen in the system. So again, that wasn't added in 51 or 52, but it was in the prior one if you weren't aware of that. Just kind of as a recap, just to let you know, version 51 had already been finalized, and the full release notes are on the FTP site. Version 2 was just finalized, and the release notes will be found on the FTP site in the version folder by the end of the week. So that is in the process of being completed and kind of going through last formatting processes. And then we'll also be sending out the link to this information to all customers within the next week. In 51, there was one fix related to the RF stock status prompt flow. In 52, I know that there was a few different fixes related to things such as residential delivery, transfer to receiving, serial default lot number field, and then there was also one for SO entry label comment field. And then, again, before we open it up for Q&A, one thing that I do want to point out, it definitely is important to be on one of our supported versions. If you are definitely on an older version, let's make sure that we have a plan in place to get you upgraded, especially not only for things like the UPS change, but just for simple fixes, making sure that you are taking advantage of all the newer features. So please contact the support department if you are in need of an upgrade. So we'll go ahead and open up now if any of you have any questions.
Julie, excellent job. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So if there's any questions out there, we're going to try the raised hand thing to see if it works, and I will definitely unmute you. And again, I appreciate everyone's time today. We appreciate your business. We enjoy working with each and every one of you. Are there any questions out there? Okay. Julie, wonderful presentation. Thanks for taking the time. Again, we will be sending this recording out. Hopefully it takes okay to everyone. We hope that you enjoy what's left of the summer. We will not be having a customer update until 2025 because our focus now is getting UPS and FedEx, all of those things sorted out so we can meet their deadlines. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you again, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.